Hey, welcome back to Pave the Way podcast, everybody. I'm your host, Greg Helbeck, and today I am with Ryan Pineda, who is an ex-baseball player turned all-star investor from Las Vegas. I met him at a conference about a year ago in San Diego, and we had some cool conversations. I've stayed connected with him ever since, and I'm happy to have him on the show. So thanks for coming on today, Ryan.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you having me.
Awesome, awesome. So, you're doing some big things in Las Vegas, which is a pretty tough competitive market. But before, we get into your business today, can you just share with everyone your background and what you did before you got into the real estate game?
Yeah, man. So I'll just kind of try and keep it short. I know I've told my story many times. So, essentially before real estate, I was a baseball player, man. I grew up wanting to just strictly play baseball and get to the big leagues. And, I was fortunate enough to be good enough to get a scholarship and play Division I and, had a lot of success and was fortunate enough to get drafted by the Oakland A's. And, I got to play pro baseball for 8 years. But a lot of people don't know in pro baseball, you don't really make much money. We were making about $1,200 a month a lot of the time. So, it taught me a lot of things with regards to budgeting and, I couldn't spend money because we didn't have money. My signing bonus wasn't very big. So I really just played for A, the love of the game. I loved it. And B, for the, big payday later on, if you get to the big leagues, that's really the only time you really start making money. So, it never happened for me for many reasons. Mainly, I just wasn't good enough. I mean, you reach a certain level and man, those guys are really, really good. And, it's tough. And you got new guys coming in every year from the draft. So you're constantly being pushed by other people. And, if you're not good enough, you get pushed out. So as my career kept going, baseball is a sport where as you get older, it's not a good thing. The younger you are, the better. And so as I got older, I started to realize, hey, this probably isn't going to work out. I'm probably not getting to the big leagues and I need to start figuring out what's my plan B. So during that whole time, I was actually a licensed realtor because I needed an off-season job. Like I had mentioned, I was making $1,200 a month and it was obviously terrible. So in the off season for 6 months, I would go and be a realtor. And so I started this in 2010, 21-year-old kid, right out of college, right when I got drafted, and didn't know what I was doing and just kind of figuring it out. The market had crashed and prices were so stupid low. Nobody was buying and it was really difficult. But, I figured out ways to make money and, I was doing it and eventually I learned to really hate it. I didn't like working with buyers. I didn't like, trying to get listings. It just wasn't for me, man. And it also wasn't really a focus because I was focused on baseball at the time. But anyways, I ended up getting out of it after a few years because I just was tired of it. And I started flipping couches. And so a lot of people ask me about that. Yeah. Yeah. My wife and I had moved into a house and I realized man, because we bought all the furniture used on Craigslist. I got such good deals on it. I was like, dude, I bet you I could resell all this stuff for like 2 or 3 times what I paid for it. And so I put the theory to the test and I was right. I bought a couch, put it in, a little garage and sold it for 3 times as what I bought it for. So I said, you know what? Instead of doing real estate, let's just see if I can make this work. And I made really good money doing that. We were making $6-8 grand a month, just selling furniture on Craigslist. It was crazy.
That is crazy, man. I had no idea. No excuses.
Yeah. No, you can make money, doing any type of hustle. And so I did that for a few years. And after a while, even though it was making good money, I was like, dude, this is obviously not what I want to do the rest of my life. And I learned about house flipping. I had heard a commercial about it and I thought it was BS, this whole thing about buying with no money down and whatever. And so I said, whatever, I'll look into it. And I did. And that led me to bigger pockets. And I just started listening to podcasts and teaching myself and trying to absorb as much knowledge as I could. And eventually, after a few months of that, I, basically had the courage and the knowledge to go act on it. And so, I had 10 grand in the bank saved up from flipping couches and, everything like that. And I just said, you know what, I'm going for it. So I found a deal from a wholesaler on Craigslist and I ended up maxing out my credit cards, got a hard money loan, bought the deal, A couple weeks later, bought another deal with the remaining funds I had, and the rest is history. So we luckily made money on those deals, and I was able to just keep rolling that money over and over again, and that was almost 5 years ago now.
Wow. I really appreciate you sharing that. I have a similar story to you. I was also playing sports. It was hockey, and I wanted to get to the pros. And I had that moment where I remember driving back from Canada, like, this is not going to work out. And I had to accept that. And it was my passion. And I was like, it's almost like you're going from you're going from one chapter in your life to a different chapter, and swallowing that pill as an athlete. Cause I was so obsessed with it, as you were, I bet. It's so difficult to do. And it's really tough for people who haven't went through that. Cause it's like your whole life is sports, your whole day. It's like, now it's business. For me, it was sports, and making that shift is tough for people.
Absolutely. And for me, I'm 30 now, and I retired when I was 28. So I've only had 2 years of my life where I consider myself like a normal person, not an athlete anymore. And, it's a huge mindset shift that is very difficult. And, I'm thankful that once I was done, I had already a better career in store. Most athletes aren't that lucky.
Yeah, no, it's tough, especially you had a plan going out, and you had your license. So you did your first couple deals, which is great. You rehabbed them. So let's kind of take everyone up to where you're at today. What does your business look like today? Because I know you may not be a practicing realtor, but you do have a brokerage. So what does your just overall operation look like, from the flipping to the wholesaling to the brokerage to the Airbnb, just so everyone can really see how much progress you've made in a short window?
Yeah, hold on one sec. My my wife has a little emergency. Sorry, she called me 3 times, and she just texted me. 1 second. Sorry.
No sweat, man.
While I'm doing this, are you Canadian?
No.
You had mentioned Canada.
I was playing in Canada. Yeah, I'm from New York, but I was playing in Canada for a little bit, so it was quite the experience.
Yeah, I gotcha. I played in Canada for multiple years. I played in Winnipeg, Canada for a season, Vancouver, Canada for a season, and then one of the leagues I was in we played in Quebec, Trois-Rivières, and then I can't remember the other place. So,
oh, it was cold, huh?
Dude, I mean the summer wasn't too bad.
Yeah. Winter, it's
yeah.
Winter begins in October up there, and it ends in May. So you're pretty much stuck for, the whole entire, the bulk of the year is it's icy outside. So
yeah, we pretty much get the only good part.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you get, from June to September, and then, that's basically it. So
yeah. So yeah, my bad. So you asked kind of what the organization looks like now?
From all, I know you got several things you're involved in. So from the flipping to the wholesaling to the brokerage to the, the Airbnb.
Yeah. Yeah. So essentially, I basically have 5 different, parts to my companies. Mainly flipping is how I got started. Well, I should say, being an agent's how I got started. I'm not an agent anymore, but I do own a brokerage. So we've got about 50 agents here in Las Vegas. I'm not the broker. I have a partner who's the broker in that. I'm more of a big picture kind of guy, and I help the agents out with, different things on that front and teach investing to those guys. So we've got that. The house flipping, obviously, we talked about. That was, how I started really actually making money in real estate. So unlike most people, I started out as a house flipper, not a wholesaler. I see most people mainly wholesaling trying to start out today. I would guess 9 out of 10 at least.
Yeah.
But I started out as a house flipper. And now we wholesale, which is another part of our business. But I would say we're still, 75% flip. 25% wholesale.
Are you wholesaling or fix and flipping?
Fix and flip. Yeah. I mean, we'll wholesale occasionally, but mainly fix and flip.
Okay.
Yeah. Wholesales are great. They're really great. But, it pretty much for us, it's any deal, we want to be able to capitalize on it, whether it's fixing it up, wholesaling it. We got a lot of strategies. The other thing, like you had mentioned, my rentals. So that's another aspect. I've got Airbnbs, we've got some multifamily, single family, different states and different things like that. So obviously we all know that rental properties are kind of the end game for all of these other things. You can't really be wealthy until you've got passive income. So then the last piece would be the education front. So, my company, Future Flipper, we've got a lot of different things with education, with online courses, with my book, Flip Your Future, with Facebook group, seminars, and little monthly meetups for the Las Vegas guys. So we're doing a lot of stuff when it comes to real estate.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, you got a lot of stuff going on. So we'll focus today probably more on the house flipping aspect of it. So when it comes to the, I want to kind of hit on this because what you mentioned earlier, a lot of people, including myself, got started wholesaling because, I didn't have any money at the time, but you didn't have that much money either, and you still made it happen. So what made you kind of gravitate towards rehabbing instead of wholesaling? Because the thing with that is, like, rehabbing, you can definitely make more money. But one of my mentors shared with me, like, with a rehab, there's multiple points of failure, opposed to a wholesale deal. It's really like one point of failure. Like, you can't sell the deal. Right. So like rehabbing, it's almost like you got two businesses. You got the marketing business and then you got the construction business. So what made you start with rehabbing, especially because it's capital intensive as well?
Yeah. So when I started in real estate, I was just an agent. So I honestly had no idea what wholesaling was. I was just representing people buying and selling houses. So that was just how I was naturally raised in the business. When I was young, I had bought my first house, just traditional 30-year loan, and lived in it for a couple of years and sold it, a couple of years later and made a good profit. So I was like, I kind of already knew buy low, sell high. But with that one, I got lucky. It was just appreciation. So once I decided to make the switch to investor, I had heard it on Bigger Pockets. Guys were talking about wholesaling. And I think, like everyone else, I looked at it, I'm like, oh, that's super cool. Like, you could go make a lot of money really quick.
Yeah, as they say.
Yeah. And I realized out of the gate, like, yeah, I could do that, but you got to find your own deals. You got to source your own deals. That's the issue. Whereas the flipper, gets to work with the wholesalers. They could source their own deals. They could, buy from the MLS. I mean, there's so many ways to make money as a flipper versus a wholesaler. You're very limited on how you can make money. And, the spread obviously isn't there as it would be for the flipper. I would look at it and I would say, well, why would I even wholesale this deal and make, 10 grand if I flipped it and made 30, I got to wholesale 3 deals versus flip 1 deal. And so I just, my mentality out of the gate was like, well, if I find a deal, I might as well just, fully capitalize on it.
Yeah. It's funny you say that because it took me 4 years to realize that, Ryan. It took me 4 years to realize that. I just did my best deal ever. I made over 6 figures on, and I could have wholesaled it. Yeah. Thank you. It was a hard one. That's like a whole other podcast, but
it was worth it.
Oh, dude, it was worth it. 10, not even the money, but it was the stuff I learned on that deal. Particularly, it was sort of a rehab. It was like a half rehab, but I could have probably made 60 grand wholesaling it, but I'm like, I could essentially almost double this just by buying it and doing some light work. So I think what you said is something investors listening to this show really need to understand, because you can take the same lead that you got to work your ass off to get, and you can make 4x more money if you can really take these properties to the highest and best use. Because, the argument on that is, oh yeah, but you have to go through all the rehab process, which you have systems for. But at the end of the day, it's all about, I'd rather make more money than do quote unquote more deals. You know what I mean? I'd rather do less deals and make the same amount of money or more money than having all these other transactions going on. So that's a good kind of way where we can take the show now. And you mentioned earlier, with wholesaling, you got one way to get deals. It's off market stuff, which is something, all investors will need to learn eventually. But you've really done a great job understanding how to work with wholesalers, especially in Las Vegas, which is a competitive market. So what are some keys, if there's some rehabbers listening to this or guys who are wholesaling or doing rentals, what keys can you give them or tips we can give them to successfully work with wholesalers? Because a lot of people, especially on the rehab side, they're like, oh, I don't want to work with a wholesaler. Oh, he's making too much money. Oh my God, why isn't he buying it himself? And you've kind of blew through all those obstacles, and I heard on Bigger Pockets, you're like, I don't care how much a wholesaler makes. As long as it's a good deal for me, it works for you. So let's share some tips on that, because it's a great way to get other deals.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just comes back down to like, what are you really concerned about? Are you concerned about, making money? Or are you concerned about, like this other guy making money? Like, for me, all the wholesalers in Vegas know, like, I have a reputation. Like, number one, I'm going to close. That's going to happen no matter what. Number two, I really don't care what they make. And then number three, they know they can trust me because, I'm out there giving away free information all the time. Like, I don't hide anything. And, they know they can bring me a deal if they don't have it under contract. And, I'll tell them where I need to be. No questions asked. I'm not going to go and chase the deal behind them or whatever. So I think we've got a lot of relationships with local guys and virtual guys, because, the virtual guys need boots on the ground, and they know that, hey, if I partner with, Ryan, then he's going to do all the boots on the ground work, and he's going to be the end buyer. Like, it's super simple for these guys. It's like just a matter of, can they generate leads, and we'll close it for them. So it makes business a lot more simple. I also JV with wholesalers, and, we'll do profit splits and different things. So I'm really flexible on, hey, if you've got a deal, like we'll find a way to make it work. Whether I buy it, whether we co-wholesale it, whether we buy it as a rental, like there's a lot of ways, or list it. I own the brokerage. So like, that's kind of what I've created, is just, hey, we're going to monetize this deal one way or another.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And that is like, what would you say, in terms of the deal volume that you're doing, what would you say the percentage of like deals you're generating from your own marketing internally versus stuff you're getting from either wholesalers or the MLS, right? Because everyone always also complains, oh, there's no deals on the MLS. I've seen posts that you've made on the internet where you've made great money on the MLS, where everyone else can see the same property in Las Vegas, like all markets. You're not in the middle of Kansas, you know what I mean? So
yeah.
What do you think your ratio is of like off market versus on market / wholesaler stuff?
It's always changing, but I would say, we average about 10 deals a month. So out of the 10, maybe 5 or 6 from wholesalers. Maybe the other 5 is from our own marketing / MLS, because I consider that all in one. We self-generated it one way or the other.
Wow. So that's awesome. So half your deals are coming from, either the MLS or wholesalers almost. So you're really, that's a really strong part of your business. So, if it, when you're buying off the MLS, I mean, are you always rehabbing those properties, or can you get away with the wholesale sometimes if you put the offer in low enough? Because that's sometimes, because it's already on the market and it's currently in the as-is condition. So are you always having to rehab those, or is that usually
I would say on the MLS, wholesales are a lot less likely, but we have done them. In fact, my very first true flip I ever sold was essentially a wholesale. We put like $2,000 into it, and I put it back on the market like a few days later, and we made $25,000. So that was an MLS deal back, when I very first started. But if you saw that one I posted yesterday, we picked up a luxury flip off the MLS. And so it's actually, it's not in bad shape. Like, obviously if we want to get top dollar, we're going to have to really, deck it out. But I'm contemplating trying to wholesale that, because I think they just misvalued it, So I may even just test the waters before we get started on it and see, like, hey, is somebody willing to pay this? So
yeah, right.
I think there are wholesale deals on the MLS as well. And I think the MLS is such an underutilized thing. In Vegas, the MLS is very competitive. We still get deals. I think 5 years ago when I was doing it, 4 or 5 years ago, it was a lot simpler and less competition. And maybe my book's the issue for that here. I think a lot of local guys have read it, and so now they know all the tips and tricks for the MLS, but it's all good. But because I go like in Big Bear, where we've got a lot of our Airbnbs, I literally have bought almost every single deal there off the MLS. Like, we don't market. There's no wholesalers up there because it's just so niche. But the MLS, I just got my searches set up, and I see things pop every so often, and that's just how I've been building my portfolio out there.
Dude, that's awesome, man. That is awesome. And especially like if you're a new investor and you don't have money for marketing, you don't want to learn, like marketing is a whole nother skill set, like direct response marketing. So if you don't want to learn those skills, you can get, because at the end of the day, it's all about making offers and getting contracts. So if you can bypass the marketing part, you can just make offers on the MLS, you're going to get contracts. It's a numbers game. So that's awesome, Ryan. It's impressive too, because you're doing it in Vegas, which is, not like like I said, you're not doing this in a tertiary market. So before we start to wrap, go ahead.
Well, let me just mention one more thing about the MLS. And, you don't see it talked about much. Like people say there's no deals on the MLS and this and that. You got to do direct marketing, you got to do mailers and cold call, like all this stuff. When I got into the business, I was a realtor. So the MLS was all I knew. I didn't even know what a wholesaler was or what, this direct marketing stuff was, nor did I have the money to actually do it. And so the MLS is just, these are all motivated sellers. They want to sell. Yeah. They're listed. They may be not motivated on the price you want to give them, but they're motivated to sell. And so I always took that approach, and I developed my skills early on in just finding deals as an agent. And so when I went to the flipper side of it and the investor side, I said, okay, based on these principles I've learned from Bigger Pockets and everything, like this is what a deal looks like when you factor in all the cost of flipping. So I just have to kind of, change my standards a little bit and, maybe look in areas where I wasn't looking before, where I can find those standards. And so that was the big mindset shift for me, was like, okay, I'm not going to spend money on marketing because that requires a lot of time. For me being a one-man show, I don't have the time to go on freaking a million appointments, play baseball, set up my marketing, all this crap. Like if I can just go browse the MLS, dude, it's way easier. And it costs me no money.
Yeah. Open all day long. Never closes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. And it's something I think a lot of investors need to really look at. And that's something like, it's funny you say, like, I listened to a good Bigger Pockets podcast on like the guy who wrote the 4 disciplines of execution. And he talked about like executing is usually the problem. And me and my buddy, I've always been an off-market guy, direct response guy. And I told my buddy in New York, I'm like, dude, I bet you we could crank 1 or 2 good deals off the MLS if we developed a system for it. And we like started making bids, and we like had one accepted. And I'm like, we just kind of threw it away, and like we're just doing the direct mail now. But like, I'm just like, I feel like if I can develop a system and then hire someone to work that system, that could get me another 60, 70 grand a year in like profits, if anything. So like, it's all about.
I can tell you that's what essentially I did was, I was doing all the MLS offers when I was an agent. And, once I opened my brokerage, I have a lot of agents now, and they all are hungry to make commissions. And so they do it for me now. And, we'll get a couple a month that literally, doesn't cost me any time. It adds another 50 to whatever every month to the bottom line. And it's free money.
Free money, man. That's awesome. That's awesome. So as we start to wind the show down, one more thing I want to hit on, especially because you're taking most of your properties down and not wholesaling, is what are you doing to get these deals funded? Because that's a big challenge a lot of investors have, including myself, until I really learned, the hard money, private money game. What are you doing to fund 10 properties a month? Because that's a lot of capital. Plus, you got the acquisition plus the rehab, and word on the street is, I'm not sure if this is true or not, but Nevada is not the best state to lend in, apparently, because there's some lenders I've worked with who said, we'll loan anywhere except for Nevada. And I'm like, I didn't understand why, but I guess you get
All right. First off, I got to tell you, as an out-of-towner, it's Nevada. But second,
Nevada, not Nevada?
Yeah, everyone who doesn't live in Nevada calls it Nevada. So that's how you know somebody's not a local. So we locals call it Nevada. But with the lenders, I know that too. I think that the law is they have to have a local office, and that's the issue.
Okay. Makes sense.
And they have to get a local office, local license, and all this crap. So there's a lot more barrier to entry for these hard money and soft money lenders. But anyways, as far as how I fund everything, when I first started, I didn't have a track record or anything. So I was using hard money, used a local hard money company, and built a relationship with them, did a couple of deals. They gave me, I was paying a lot of points, I was paying 4 points and 10%, but whatever. I mean, that's what I had to do to get started, and I knew they were going to close, and I made money still. I just factored it into my offer. As I started getting more exposure and other people, I started to raise private money, and my first private lender came from a guy in my Bible study. And, from there, him and I did a bunch of deals, and, he started giving me more money and introduced me to other people who had money. And, I started doing just more and more stuff and just networking and kept meeting more and more people. And so the majority of my stuff at this point is private money. And so I can pretty much get into most deals with like no money out of my own pocket. And so that's why for us, taking down deals is not a big deal, because we're really never constrained by capital. And, I'll knock on wood, hopefully it continues to be that way. And, it may or may not be, and we'll have to adjust if that ends up being the case. But that's always been my goal, is to, hey, how can I have as little of my own money as possible? Even if I have to give up equity, or if I have to, pay more points than I want or whatever, like at the end of the day, I just want to do more deals, because I know that if I do more deals, I'm going to make more money, even if my money is more expensive. And so as long as I can, have the contractors and the system to facilitate the deals, which we do. So, that's really what I've been up to these days, is just even now with like, hey, we don't have a problem funding deals, but I'm always looking for more money, right? You never stop, because one of your lenders one day might just say, hey, I don't want to lend anymore. So you got to have all these other guys in the pipeline. And, it's just like deals. Just because you buy one good deal, you still got to always be looking for more.
It's so true, man. It's so true. I actually just did a private money deal. This is on Friday we closed, and we paid him, a couple points up front plus a little bit higher interest on the back end, but I didn't come out of pocket anything. He loaned the whole thing. And I'd rather do that than get 8% from lending home and then have to come to the table with 10% plus the monthly.
Exactly.
Is a pain in the ass like that. But anyway,
exactly.
The key with private money.
Pay more. If you don't have to come out of pocket, it's gold.
Exactly. And most of the loans are even they're annual. So it's like you're not going to pay him literally 12%. It's like 1% a month, and then you guarantee a couple months so it's worth his time. And that's where the points play. But the key to that is like just networking, telling people, showing people what you do, documenting your deals on the internet, and having people reach out. It's almost like I'm reading a book now called Attraction Marketing by Dan Kennedy. And like when you can document that you're a serious player and you're doing deals, people want to work with you. A lot of people, this better than anyone, they want to be in real estate, but they don't know how. Maybe they have some money. Maybe they want, you know what I mean? So like people will be very surprised if they just start putting out content on social media, what type of opportunities will come to them just because they like their content. They align with their content. And, I get people that I'm adding to my private money database all the time just by me putting out even this podcast. I mean, it's crazy what happens when you just start putting out information and documenting what you're doing, Yeah.
And I'll say one thing to that is, I started about putting out content back in like 2016, and, I wasn't doing crazy amounts of stuff at the time. And so I think a lot of people, they think, oh man, I gotta like be at a really high level before I can start putting out content. Like, no, just start documenting your journey now. And then people will see the growth and be like, oh, dang, like I remember when he wasn't, doing what he's doing now. And I get people who tell me that all the time. Like, I've been following you for years, and it's crazy to see like, what's happened, and I want to get involved and this and that. So, content is definitely huge. And we preach that to our agents all the time, because man, in this age of social media, once again, it goes back to like the MLS. It's free money. It costs you nothing to put out this content, and it will generate you money one way or the other. And like for us, that's part of the reason why I have that broad range of businesses, because like if you watch my content, and you want to be a part of what I'm doing, you can one way or the other. If you're an agent, you can join my brokerage. If you're a wholesaler and you've got a deal, send me the deal. If you're a flipper and you want to buy a deal, we'll sell you a deal. If you're a private money guy and you don't want to get into real estate, you just want to invest, great. Like, you can invest with me. So we've kind of, for me, it's just like, all right, well, at this point, just put out good content and leads will come in for one way or the other.
It's so true. And it's amazing what happens when you just start consistently put out content. Like, you know what I mean? You start to get a following, and then all of a sudden, next thing you know, you build your email list up. That's a whole other topic. But it's the power of just the takeaway for the listeners here is just put out content, just like this podcast. I put out 2 shows a week, and hundreds and thousands of people listen monthly. So it's like, that's content, and that content, it's on the internet. Like it's going to live in perpetuity. So like people can listen to this 10 years from now. So like, it's just the key is having the content out. and letting, you could let the opportunities come as you put the content out. So that's awesome. And it's so important. And like you said, if you're not doing 4 to 5 houses a month, like you could do one deal and then document what you learned on your first deal. Cause then someone who's never done a deal is going to look up to you because you've done one more house than them and they can get the lessons. So it's, there's many ways to do it. And this has been a fun one, Ryan. So as we start to close this up, I mean, is there, if there's people listening to this show and they, maybe they're on the fence, maybe they got done with a career, in sports and they want to get in the real estate game. Do you have any kind of parting words of advice for someone listening who wants to get into the game and they may be a little scared, they might be uncertain, like you and I both were before we started? What would be your kind of, best advice for them real quickly?
Yeah, I mean, for the people on the fence, I mean, I think there's two types of people. There's the people who, kind of are in that analysis paralysis stage, like they want to do it, yet they just are very scared. And then there's the people who really just have no idea. If, they've heard about real estate and they're like, I wouldn't even know where to begin. Those are the two I see. And so like for the first guy who's got analysis paralysis, I mean, at the end of the day, quit watching these podcasts and reading all these books and like literally just get out there and go do it. Like you've got to start taking action and track the action you're taking. So, hey, how many calls did you make? How many doors did you knock? How many offers did you make? I mean, that's like, I like to post in the future flipper group, like, hey, how many offers did you guys make today? How many, whatever, like, who's taking action? Cause that's the only way to make money. So that's, for those guys, and that's probably going to be someone who watches this podcast. That's probably the boat you're in. What to do. You're just not taking action. Yeah. So, just do it. There's no other way I can put it. For the newbie who's just seeing if maybe this is something they want to do, I think that reading my book is really the best way to do it. You could pick it up on Amazon. It's called Flip Your Future. If you want to learn more about, other stuff that we do, you can just go to ryanpineda.com. But I really believe that that's a great gateway to just see like, okay, I understand the concepts of flipping and what a deal is and, all in real estate investing. So I think I could do this. And, it will lead to other things with listening to podcasts or buying my course or buying whatever, getting licensed. I mean, it's a good gateway.
That's awesome. No, that's some great advice. And if you're the first group that Ryan talked about, turn this podcast off right now and go make some offers because
Exactly.
Once I started tracking the offers I started making, over time the money started rolling in because I saw like if I didn't have a good month, I made 3 offers, right? Like you can't make 3 offers and expect to make money in this.
You ain't going to succeed.
No. It's all about, it comes down to offers and everyone like freaks out over leads. I think offers are more important than leads because if you get 20 offers you get 20 leads, you make 1 offer, you got an issue. You have an offer issue. So you got to
funny story on that. Somebody had sent me a DM yesterday on Instagram and they were like, hey, I've got these 2 deals, yada, yada, yada. I'm deciding which one I want to offer on, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, why are you deciding which one you want to offer on? Offer on them both. And they're like, well, what if I get them both? And I'm like, number 1, you're probably not going to get them both. Yeah. Number 2, if you do get them both, you probably offer too much. And number 3, if by the rarest of circumstances, they're both legitimate deals and you can only, afford to buy one, you can wholesale the other. You cannot ever have too many deals.
I could not agree more with that statement. That's a good problem to have, investor who got to Ryan. So if you're listening to the show, buy them both. And you could probably even flip them both if you really get resourceful with the capital and you'll make 4x the money.
They're deals. You will find people to,
money flocks to deals. Yeah. If you have a good deal, like I remember we had a good one a couple of years ago when I first started like taking deals down. We raised the private money on this deal so quickly, I couldn't even believe it. I'm like, oh my God. Because he showed him the numbers. I'm like, dude, you're going to have a first position on a house that's 50 cents on the dollar in a market where there's no inventory. Like what, and we're going to pay you points. What are you going to say no to? Like it's a no brainer, So awesome. And I have the book link. I have your website and then your social handles for everyone for the show notes. I really appreciate you coming on the show, taking up some of your time, and let's stay in touch, man. Really excited to have you on the show.
Awesome, brother. Thanks for having me.